the problem in UP and Bihar. So we can get the power from it, and we can give them a viability gap. And he can sell that water to industry again. So that can be a model where we can get, in place of 60,000 crores, we can make it in 20,000 crores, probably, approximately. So this is possible. If suppose we want to make Ganga free from pollution, we need 60,000 crores. We are not in position. Our financial constraints are there. So we need the public-private investment. We have only two choices. One, either drop it, don't do it, or do it with the public-private investment. Between the two choices, we have to select one. So there is no option, because that much capital is not with the government. But government can give 10%, 20%. The important thing is that these, I'm sorry, I'm not talking anything about comments on any company, but the company is coming from abroad. Their cost is very high. Their manpower cost is very high. In our country, if we are paying engineer 50,000 rupees per month, there is 10 lakhs rupees per month. So we have to create this model into Indian scenario by which we have to reduce the cost. We can take the main important thing from them, and they can establish their offices here in the country by reducing the cost. Without reducing the cost, it's not possible. Because the other countries, the European countries, the USA, the Germany, the Japan, their model, their per capita income is very high. And in our country, we have to make the proposal viable, comparing whatever the paying capacity of our people and what are the budgetary availability in our corporations. And second thing, we should not give it to the one company. We should give transparency, auditing and accountability point of view. It can be good to distribution to the many small people. Because in power distribution and water distribution, a lot of theft is there. No accountability, no auditing. And the power sector, and here there is a policy that more generation, more losses, no generation, no losses. So in the water, drinking water also, now no one is serious. Political leadership, they have no answer for all these problems. So in a professional management, a time-bound, transparent management, distribution to the small level by which we can fix up the responsibility, accountability and auditing. And also you have to find out the solution. That is not your subject. But if any idea, if you want to sell to the people, you have to think about politically. By corporatization of water, if you say, it will start criticism on you. You just talk about it, creating a more employment, giving jobs to the lakhs of youth in this drinking water project. People will say, it's good, go on. So how you are going to present it, that is the important thing. I feel that today the central government, the state governments, municipal corporation, they are in position to accept it. You need model agreement. People like you. Pricing also important, but what my feeling is today, in the corporation, in my corporation, I am not exactly, maybe correct, when the commissioner will tell you. But when we have 400 MLD of water, our loss was 65 crores. When we are going to 730 MLD, our loss will be 125 crores. So now, because of this 24/7, I am confident we have to screw this company because they have to work more professionally. Then there will be no loss, no profit. So it's a economically viable, good project for the corporation and giving water to the people, because there is no waste of water. 40% of water in all the country, you go anywhere in any city, the commissioner don't know where is the 40-50% water is going. No answer for this question. Such a irresponsible, today the things are moving. So in the case, I feel that by considering all these things, losses, it can be by reducing losses, theft, it can be an economical viable project, even at least no profit, no loss basis. It is possible. That this is my feeling. But you are going to the details about it. And there is a strong will in government, and this is a time for the country to accept it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I am sorry, actually, if I have to also listen from your suggestions, but President's speech is there in Parliament, so that is my compulsion. I have to go. I am very sorry for that. Thank you very much.
Sir, we are most grateful that you took the time. Thank you very much. And we'll take a 5-minute break before the next session. Siddharth to send everyone in. So we start with our first session. I'm going to dispense with the opening remarks, and we get straight on to Dr. Mihish Shah's presentation, about 30 minutes. Yeah? So, thank you.
As you know, I was asked to prepare this scoping paper on urban water systems in India, a way forward. We are all aware that this is a relatively understudied subject. And when I started exploring the literature and all that was available, it became evident that a similar paper of this kind actually probably did not exist. And so a lot of work was done, and in my paper it's about a 100-page paper. I hope some of you have read it. There are a number of people who made major contributions in substantiating what has been presented in the paper, which is really in the form of a series of what we call typologies and hypotheses. It's really an attempt to put forward a kind of understanding that is possible on urban water in India based on all the evidence, all the experience that is available, and all the research that has been done. So the broad goals of the scoping paper were to review the available literature, to present the state-of-the-art knowledge, and to make a statement of the problem which was new in the way the understanding of the problem was stated. And as I said, the idea was to propose possible hypotheses which are really a subject for further research, further investigation, because a lot of exploration has to be done on how we must move forward on resolving the urban water issues. The attempt also was to scan what are the best possible solutions. There has been best practice in the area. Dr. Ahluwalia herself has done an amazing documentation of the work done in urban India, which can be seen as indicating a way forward. And the paper, you would find, has an extensive review of the best possible solutions that we have. And finally, it's an attempt to provide a framework. It's a framework which would be able, it would enable us to understand urban water issues in India, because the issue, as you know, has many dimensions and a great degree of complexity. And so it was felt that a framework would be a good way to end the paper with, which could be then used by other scholars who would like to do further work in this area. The broad facts before us, that the global urban population is to nearly double to around 6.4 billion by 2050. And that 90% of this growth in urban population is going to happen in low-income countries. And among those will be urban slum dwellers who will number around 2 billion in 30 years' time. And in India itself, the urban population, which is around 400 million today, the way I like to put it is that today we have 800 million, roughly, rural Indians and 400 million urban Indians. By 2050, rural Indians will remain 800 million, but the urban Indians will be another 800 million. So the population in India will become the most populous nation in the world, and we would have 1.6 billion people, 50% of whom will be living in urban areas by 2050. Now, in India, cities produce nearly 40,000 million liters of sewage every day. The minister was adducing to that, and hardly about 20% of it is being treated. According to the Central Pollution Control Board, only 2% of India's towns have both sewage systems and sewage treatment plants. So there is a huge challenge of both water supply and water quality that urban India is facing. What the paper is trying to do is, however, to go a step further by saying that when we speak of what we call urban India, it's actually quite misleading, because urban India is a continent in itself. And there are many, many kinds of urban challenges that you face when we speak of urban India. So India's urban population has grown fivefold over the last 50 years. And it has grown in all four categories of towns and cities. So the paper actually presents, this is, for the sake of presentation, just the last 30 years data. The paper has data on the last 110 years classifying the population into these four categories of less than 1 lakh, 1 lakh to 1 million, 1 to 5 million, and greater than 5 million. And what we find is that 112 million people actually live in towns which the minister was referring to, which have less than 1 lakh people. And the challenges of these towns, these are the kinds of towns who are falling between the cracks. You have a lot of focus on rural development in India, and there is the focus of the JNNU-RM on the larger, the big metro cities. But these towns, which have a substantial proportion of India's population, and it's a growing population, and all four categories, as I've said, have actually grown over time. There are 112 million people living in these smaller towns. And of course, in the cities, more than 1 million people, there are 160 million who live in such large cities. So each of these urban settlements has its own unique characteristics and unique challenges. And we need to be very careful in the way we design our approaches to resolving the problems in these different urban contexts. And that is one of the major issues that the paper has tried to address. So what the paper is proposing is this kind of a hypothesis about the urban continuum. And we are saying that it's a schema in 4 stages, that the beginning is the smaller towns of less than 1 lakh. These are really outgrowths of the rural situation. That is, what we have is a rural hinterland which is growing and becoming, growing into an urban settlement. So around the nucleus, you have a certain degree of growth. Then you have the next stage where around that nucleus, the periphery starts growing. So you have what we call the growth stage. Then the expansion stage, which is the 1 lakh to 1 million stage, and then the agglomeration, where you have huge metros coming up, which go into beyond 5 million stage. So the paper tries to understand the problems of urban India within this schema of 4 stages. So what we are saying is we look at these stages in a continuum with unique situations and solutions. There are 4 stages of nucleus, growth, expansion, and agglomeration, which correspond to the population-wise classification which I described in the tables. And what we are saying is that the degree of dependence on different sources of water is different in these differently sized towns and cities. So we propose a hypothesis of stages of evolution of urban settlements in India and their changing dependence on sources of water supply. Now, this is a hypothesis which needs to be further tested as more robust data becomes available on sources of water in urban India. But this is roughly what the hypothesis looks like. So what we are saying is that we are plotting the dependence on urban surface water and groundwater across differently sized urban settlements in India. What we are saying is that when the town is the smallest, you are emerging from the rural hinterlands, your primary dependence is on groundwater, because that is what the rural hinterlands were dependent on, and the town is really an agglomeration around that basic rural core. So the predominant source of water is groundwater. As you move to the second stage, what happens is that the surface water is now servicing the core of the town, but the periphery, which is surrounded by the rural areas, still remains largely dependent on groundwater. When we come to the 1 lakh to 1 million stage, both surface water and groundwater grow in significance. But what happens typically is that groundwater levels and quality both begin to fall, because you are not doing very much to recharge that water, you're not doing very much to address the problems of quality. And what's happening is that you're compromising the groundwater available and the kind of quality of groundwater. And therefore, the surface water dependence grows in those towns and cities which have reached this stage. And finally, in the stage which is the largest metros, more than 5 million people, it is